Yo, what is up gamers? My name is Russ and today I'm bringing you another quick look, kind of build spotlight style video. Just a look at another build for DH, which is possible now with Venthyr and double legendary. A lot of people it's probably the one that you've heard about. If there's no other Venthyr builds that you've heard about, this is the single target focused cycle of hatred build. So I'll go quickly through the talents and then I'll go through the Soulbinds and I'll show you quickly how to play it. And I'll talk about its uses, when you might want to use it, when you might not. And then I'll link you to a video of me doing some gameplay with it. So we'll start with the talents. Blind Fury basically is going to extend your eye beam, which is going to cause your Unity and Agony Gaze to give you more refresh time on your Sinful Brand. So this helps, basically it refills your Fury bar so you can make your demonic windows hit harder, because you're going to fill up your entire bar. You're just going to be able to empty it on Annihilations or Chaos Strikes. Well, Annihilations inside demonic. This build is basically 2 buttons. So I'll go over it again in a second. But Blind Fury is going to help you with Sinful Brand uptime and just making your demonic windows a bit more potent, I guess. Insatiable Hunger is going to take us off Demon Blades, which we've been playing for quite a while. So it's going to put Demon's Bite back on your bar. Quite spammy, so you're going to be spamming this to build Fury and Chaos Strike or Annihilation to spend it. Essentially, that is like the bread and butter of the spec. It's just those 2 buttons. You need Fury, press Demon's Bite and build it. You got too much Fury, you spend it on Chaos Strikes. So that's basically how it works, and Insatiable Hunger is just going to help with that. Now, Unbound Chaos, you can kind of run whichever one you want in this build, but Unbound Chaos is the safest. Now, the reason for that is that Glaive Tempest costs Fury, plus a global cooldown that you wouldn't be spending on another spender, such as Chaos Strike, right? If you do Glaive Tempest, you kind of run the risk of losing Sinful Brand uptime, or your Sinful Brand dropping off if you get unlucky with Cycle of Hatred procs from your Annihilations, because you need to get like 2 to 3 Cycle of Hatred procs per I-beam window to get the cooldown low enough to maintain 100% uptime on Sinful Brand. So the best way to do it is with Unbound Chaos. Personally, not my favorite talent pick because I don't like fell rushing for damage, but it is Fury neutral, I guess. Like, it doesn't cost any Fury to fell rush, so you just use the global to get the damage. You're going to be pressing Immolation or on cooldown anyway still, as you usually would. So it just gives you, you just have to fell rush like every 20 seconds or so. It's kind of fine, but yeah, it doesn't feel as good with Glaive Tempest. Now, you can switch out Glaive Tempest in dungeons if you want, but as I said, you do run the risk of Sinful Brand not quite having 100%, which isn't as important in dungeons as in a boss fight. It's like mainly a raid build, but it can be used in Mythic Plus. So in level 35 row, Netherwalk, I usually take, you can play Soul Rending if you want, but Netherwalk I feel like just saves you sometimes. Just for me, it's the most useful, but pick what you want. Level 40, important to go with this build, Cycle of Hatred. So we're going away from First Blood. Cycle of Hatred basically just gives you a chance, which is the 40% that's built into Chaos Strike. Every time that procs, you are going to get a reduced cooldown on I-beam. So you can't buff this up with crit. You used to scale off crit, which is why crit was DH's best talent back in Legion. But now it's just 40% baseline. That means that every time that procs, 40% chance per Chaos Strike, and I believe it can proc off the conduit Relentless Onslaught. Every time that procs, you're going to get some I-beam cooldown reduction. So the entire purpose of this build is you're just going to be spamming as many Chaos Strikes or Annihilations as you can to reduce the cooldown on I-beam as much as you can to keep up. So you're just going to be refreshing the duration of Sinful Brand all the time, and that's basically how the whole build works. Demonic is just gonna, as I said, kind of like make you be spending your Fury Annihilation instead of Chaos Strike, which just hits harder. It's like the empowered one. Obviously works well with our tier set bonus as well. So that's kind of like the talents of it. I just briefly touched on the Soulbinds a second ago. For the most part, you're going to be wanting to run Nadija. You can run the other ones as well, but for specifically the raid build and like the pure single target focus build, which is kind of like what brings this one together, you could probably run anything with triple potency basically. So you want Growing Inferno, you want double potency. You want Growing Inferno and you want Relentless Onslaught. So Growing Inferno is obviously just going to buff up your immolation aura. If you've been playing DH at all in Shadowlands, you know immolation aura is basically like our highest DPS per button press that we have in the entire class. It's just crazy damage for every single build that you can possibly do. So Growing Inferno is basically just solid in every single build that you'll ever play. You'll want to be running this conduit. So I always just leave it at the very top of the tree. And then you want to be playing Relentless Onslaught. So this is just, you're going to be, as I said, spending Fury, Chaos Strikes, building Fury, Demon Spites. So all of your Fury is basically going to be going into Chaos Strikes. So you might as well have 11% increased chance to proc that. And the 11% increased chance is also going to have an increased chance to proc your Cycle of Hatred, which is I-Beam cooldown reduction, which is again what we're kind of going after with this build. And the reason you're taking Nadija, she gives you a ton of haste and also a ton of verse, where if you have higher verse than crit, which you should, she'll give you like a ton of verse as well once you have benefit from Thrill Seeker, this passive haste kind of steroid that you get. Also you get this Dauntless Duelist Soulbind talent thing, which is just going to give you 3% more damage to your main target that you attack first. If it's a boss fight, 3% more damage on the boss, what's not to like, right? You also take a bit less damage, so that's also cool. So they're like the kind of main things. Defensive wise, I make sure that I always have Fell Defender, and then you can really just fill in with what you want. Endurance and finesse wise, just make sure you go this way on the tree, so you get the Dauntless Duelist and you get double potency, then you can just go kind of where you want, right? You could run this with other Soulbinds. I personally don't think they work as well. Draven has damage that's built into death, obviously you don't want to be dying, and single target wise he's not quite as strong as like Nadija. Theater may be like a good all-rounder. If you feel like you're losing your uptime on your Sinful Brand quite often, maybe you could go for triple potency with increased scrutiny, but I do think that Nadija is the best. So gear wise, for me, I'm running 4-piece tier set because I have it. You don't need any tier to make this build work. It works all the same anyway. 2-piece is just going to give you free extra damage, and 4-piece is going to give you increased uptime in meta. You'll see when I demonstrate on the target, no, you don't actually need meta. You don't need to use meta or anything like that to keep up Sinful Brand 100% of the time. You should be able to do that regardless, just by how the kit works. Legendary wise, obviously you want your Unity on whichever piece you've made it on. That will be down to your character, so sim whichever thing works best for you. And I like to run Collective Anguish. You can run Dark Glare as well, but it's a bit more RNG, kind of the same as I mentioned in my previous video. If you want to look at the Venthyr First Blood build, which works in both dungeons and like any raid bosses which have cleave, which is quite a lot in the new raid, I will put a link to that video down below, and like a little preview on screen and at the end of this video as well. But Collective Anguish is like sustained, very reliable. You know what you're going to get, you can plan around it. So personally I prefer it. I like having a steady damage profile where I know what's going to happen and I can think ahead, so I can plan my movements, I can plan my positioning, I can plan my target switches, things like that. I like to have that reliability, so I play Collective Anguish. You can play Dark Glare. I have it on the neck piece. Going to turn it into a bit more of a gambler build. On pure single target this could work out well because, as I said, you don't need to meta to get the Sinful Brand uptime, but if it ever does fall off, you're going to have a hard time catching back up again. Collective Anguish is very easy. As I said, very steady damage profile throughout the fight. That's basically the 2 legendaries that you're going to be wanting to run along with your Unity. And I'll just give you a quick preview of kind of like how the build works. So your general rotation is basically Immolation Aura whenever it's available, as you would with every single build. And then you're basically just going to get enough Fury to be able to Sinful Brand into I-Beam. And then all you do, spend your Fury and build your Fury. Spend your Fury. And now that my I-Beam and Demonic Window's over, that's when I'm going to Fell Rush to use up the Unbound Chaos proc, right? And as soon as I-Beam's ready again, I'm going to make sure I pop my Immolation Aura. I'm just going to start spending my Fury. Spending my Fury. I-Beam Window's over. So I use my Fell Rush, and that's literally the entire rotation. As you can see, my Sinful Brand's very safe. It's still got 13 seconds remaining. I-beams back up, and that's all you do. That's the entire single target rotation. It does very good sustained damage. It's like a really good single target or even 2-target raid build. So for example, now I could chuck it once my I-beam's in range of cooling down. I'll use my thingy there. I can Sinful Brand this target, and now I can actually extend it on 2 targets. And now I can sit here and I can just be pummeling all my damage into 1 target. So 2 boss fights like Lords of Dread or Prototype Pantheon, you can see where this is kind of going. You just want to be looking for these procs on I-beam cooldown reduction. So I'm really looking for a proc right now where I have the risk of losing my Sinful Brands, which I did on my second target, but I almost did on both, right? But I managed to keep it up. So I'm looking for these cooldown reductions, and say it's going to fall off on my main target, I do have this one now ready to just throw up on my main target. So I'm going to go, I'm just going to, for safety, I'm going to refresh Sinful, then I'm going to I-beam. I actually let my Unbound Chaos run off there, but you see what I mean? Like on single target, which is kind of like the main gist of this, you'll have absolutely no trouble keeping up Sinful Brand. Like it's when you start using globals on other things, you see how then I only used the global cooldown to put up a Sinful Brand on my other target and maybe a Fell Rush here and there. That's when you're going to run the risk of, because every global cooldown you spend on something else, that's a global cooldown you're not spending on either a Demon's Bite or a Chaos Strike, which I said is like the essence of the build, right? So that's generally how it works. Now, if I do a little demonstration with meta, you'll see that you can get like quite a high Sinful Brand uptime here. So say you like simulate an actual boss pull, I'll Immolation Aura, I'll throw on my Sinful Brand, I'll I-beam, then I'll meta, then I'll I-beam again, and now you see I'm very safe. Like I have a 35-second Sinful Brand. It's going to be really hard for me to lose that. Like if I mess that up, I really messed it up, right? So that's just basically it. You just keep doing this, and now you see like I've still got 20 seconds remaining. I-beams back up. I can extend it again to 35 seconds. It's going to be really hard for me to lose this, but it's good because it gives you that leeway if you ever have to move off the boss for any reason. Say, I don't know, like Rylagon or something, you need to move away from the boss, or on Lords of Dread, it's the Among Us phase. You have the risk of like losing a Sinful Brand, right? So there, having that like buffer of the really long Sinful Brand, it might be good. And say it's only a single target, I now have my Sinful Brand ready to go again. Like it's off cooldown, I don't need to use it again because it will overwrite this one I have, which is longer. So I'll just keep doing this, and say for example I have to go do a mechanic, or like I have to go help something or other, and then now I'm off the boss, right? So the uptime, you really need uptime, and if you don't have uptime, you're gonna start like, you know, now my I-beam's kind of on 8 seconds and my Sinful Brand's on 18, so it's a little bit sketchy. I actually got 4 procs there, so that's really good. So I can extend it there. So if for any reason I have to like run away and do something for ages, my Sinful Brand might drop off. So I'm going to keep this one in the bank, this one I have ready on my bars in the bank, and then I can just run back to the boss, Sinful Brand it again, I-beam it. Make sure that you always have I-beam up before you use Sinful Brand, because you don't just want to Sinful Brand and then be like, oh, I can't extend it with my I-beam. So then I can just go back to basically just restarting my rotation. As I said, you don't need meta to actually like keep up Sinful Brand 100%. It just gives you that little buffer whenever you can chuck a meta up, right? So as you can see, like I even AFK'd a little bit there, you can keep the Sinful Brand up. That's basically how it works. That's like how the whole build works. It's just keeping up Sinful Brand 100% of the time. You can see it just does crazy damage, and all the rest of your damage is going to be annihilations, I-beams, fell devastations, chaos strikes, and trinkets. So one extra thing I thought I'd include in the video. Very unlikely that you'll get this kind of scenario. The only one I can kind of think of is Prototype Pantheon in the last phase when you have 4 bosses active. If you actually do manage to get a you know, meta onto multiple targets, you can actually keep up that Sinful Brand on all of those targets by just funneling into one target. So I'm still not using Death Sweep here, because by Death Sweep I'm not Chaos Striking. if I'm not chaos striking, I'm not cooling down I-beam. So I want to just be getting as many I-beam refreshes as possible, and now I can keep up the Sinful Brand on all 5 targets indefinitely, pretty much. And obviously I want to be fell rushing through them, use up my unbound chaos procs. But if I'm just tunneling into one target, I'm just getting my Cycle of Hatred procs, and I can just keep up Sinful Brand on all 5 targets. And it is like crazy. Very rare that this would happen, but it's just a cool thing to include. I thought I'd include it in the video for the sake of completion. But yeah, that's if there's ever a scenario where you feel like you can just like chuck out a sustained DPS, Metamorphosis is a really crazy good cooldown, especially with the Cycle of Hatred build. Like I can just keep up Sinful Brand on these 5 targets literally forever. And if there was 10 targets here, it would be the same. If there was 20 targets that were gonna, for some reason there were 20 targets that were gonna live for 5 minutes, I could literally just sit here and keep, like, as long as I Metamorphosis on top of all 20 targets and they're kind of stacked up in like I-beamable range, I could keep Sinful Brand up on all 20 targets. And as you can see, like, I'm literally doing, you know, 51% of my damage right here is Sinful Brand. I'm pressing 2 buttons. Like, I can talk to the camera. I'm just rotating my fingers between 1 and 2 on my keyboard, you know, and I'm doing 31k sustained DPS, and I'm like, it's crazy, but it's like a cool little thing that if that ever happens, you know, maybe you're playing M+ and it's like a fortified week and there's a pack that's going to live really long, you could actually, you know, save your Metamorphosis, be like, hey, tank, my meta's ready, you can do a really big pull, and as long as he can survive for a long time and keep the mobs fairly stacked up, you can meta on top of them, keep refreshing your I-beam. But you have to be, it's really tempting to blade dance, right, because it's AoE, but you have to just be using Annihilation to cool down I-beam. And now you can just sit here and spin doing Annihilation, and just keep it up forever, right, which is really cool because it does a lot of fucking damage. All right. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to include it in the video. Just do as you will. That's literally the entire build. You can play in Mythic Plus if you want to put emphasis on single target damage, maybe tyrannical weeks. This build might be very good in Mythic Plus, but it is mainly a raid build. I do have a video of me doing pretty respectable damage in a Plaguefall plus 22, which should have uploaded right before this video, so go check that one out if you want to see some gameplay. I'll leave it up there for you now. Also check out the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/JustRuss, if you want to watch me play or just chat and hang out, ask me any questions, whatever. I have a nice community over there, so feel free to do that. Make sure you like the video because you're obviously still here, so you quite clearly liked it. And yeah, if there's any questions, chuck them in the comments down below. I will get back to you. Hopefully you enjoy the content. And I think that's it. Thank you to the patrons that support the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. All right, as always, peace.